All right, so the best zombie books you may not have heard of. And we'll just go right in. I've watched a lot of zombie movies. I've watched a lot of really terrible zombie movies as a result. I've read a lot of zombie books and have written many myself. I had a zombie story included in Best Horror of the Year Volume 5, edited by the legendary Ellen Datlow. I had a zombie story included in Zombies More Recent Dead with Prime Books. For a few years, I ran a zombie book blog tour twice yearly, featuring the work of several fine authors in this subgenre of horror and apocalyptic fiction. What I'm saying is that I've put in my 10,000 hours to be an informal expert on the subjects of zombie fiction. I feel confident in my opinions. So I've read a lot of zombie fiction. I watched a lot of zombie movies. I actually kind of have an attraction to bad zombie movies, like ones that are low production and just low quality sometimes. And for a long time, I couldn't pass one up when I saw it somewhere. In terms of my writing, the very first story that I was ever paid for, I got $5 for a zombie story that came in third in a contest, and the subject line on the check that I got, this is back when they were still mailing out checks, said "payment for zombies," because the contest was called Zombies with an exclamation point. So that kind of stuck with me as I kind of started to believe my own myth that if I could be paid to write, then I could do this for a living. And of course, back then it was just the $5, but it was enough to inspire me to go on writing. And for a long time, not a long time, but for a while, I was only writing zombie stories, and then I started branching out into other types of horror and other genres pretty quickly, and that's kind of where I was able to sort of build a career for myself. But I still like zombie stories very, very much, and I think there's some authors out there that deserve a little bit more attention. All right, continuing with the article. For this list, the 10 books selected had to check off a specific list of criteria. They had to be great stories. They had to stand out from the shambling crowd of decaying narratives that slip down from good to fair to poor to unreadable. They had to be far enough out of the mainstream to not be known by most readers, and in some cases, even readers who enjoy zombie fiction as a rule. Some of them have a large niche of loyal readers, but the books are still underappreciated in my informal expert opinion. They all had to bring something different to the zombie trope than what I can find in any other zombie book. While there are many more stories out there just as remarkable as these, I believe these 10 books represent the best of the underappreciated zombie novels, stories, and series most more readers should know about. All right, so let's just dive right in, and I'll kind of expound on a few of these where I didn't say as much about them necessarily in the article. All right, number one, The Living Dead, a new novel by George A. Romero and Daniel Kraus. If you've heard of any of these, it is probably this one. It was a little more mainstream, but still deserves more attention. Daniel Kraus was tasked with taking the late George A. Romero's notes and partially written novel sections and finishing this epic. And it is epic. It's a novel that makes me realize I need to write better stories, especially if I want to keep writing zombie stories. This book could be the strongest or the greatest zombie novel I've ever read. If you don't know who George A. Romero is, then you should check out his movies and get caught up. Now, of course, George A. Romero is the filmmaker who made Night of the Living Dead and then Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and other movies as well, going forward through his life. And our modern concept of sort of the shambling, mindless, undead zombie is really sort of cemented in his work. Before that, you had more like voodoo style zombies that were kind of controlled by a magic user of some kind. And then you had other forms as well. But this was sort of he's sort of the godfather of like what we expect to see when we talk about a zombie story. And he had written things before, and he was working on this novel off and on for a large portion of the later part of his life. And I saw Daniel Kraus on a panel talking about the process of putting this book together and working with Romero's wife and finding all the different pieces and occasionally finding new pieces of the novel that he had to rewrite sections to make them work. And I heard him do a reading of a section of this particular novel, and it's just excellent. It's just wonderful, wonderful writing, very captivating, and in addition to being a zombie novel, so it's possible this may be the greatest zombie novel I've ever read, and I have a high opinion of many different books. All right, number two, Good Boy by Thomas R. Clarke. This short novel, it may actually be novella length. This short novel is excellent and unique. It follows animal protagonists through a zombie apocalypse. The dog characters are written as real animals as we get inside their heads through the action, not just talking cartoon characters. It has all the best elements of zombie and apocalyptic action, along with the very best of animal protagonists. I'm reminded of the writing of Watership Down, and that's quite an accomplishment for a zombie story. Thomas R. Clarke is relatively new to publication, but he's breaking big. So he's doing a lot of work, not just with zombies, but with horror more broadly, and has worked very hard on his craft, where he's done a number of workshops and has worked with other authors who've mentored him. And so he's been writing for many, many years, more recent to publishing, but has been very serious about the craft, and that shows in his writing. And this is just an excellent, excellent book. When I say the dogs aren't cartoon characters, it's not like they're thinking like people and running around in a dog body. He does a very good job of capturing the perspective of the animals in the story, and I think it makes something really grand and unique in this very short story. All right, number three, Infected by James Schnepp. I never can pronounce his name right, but he's okay with it. This is a choose-your-own-adventure book, and it is great. Schnepp has several awesome choose-your-own-adventure books for adult readers. He recommends the ebook version because you can jump easily to the right section with each of your choices, but the paperback is great, especially if you were a fan of these types of books as a kid. The key to this book is that the writing is really well done. It's excellent storytelling aside from the gimmick. I was able to interview James about his process, and he does these like elaborate spreadsheets of all the different choices and adventures and starting points and where they end. So it's not a shallow book. There's just so many directions that it can go, so many possible endings. He's done one about pirates, I think. He's done one about one about a pandemic, I believe. There's just a bunch of them. Now, he did it before the stuff that's going on now, but there's a whole bunch of different types of these choose your own adventures book, and they're just excellent. They're really great writing. They're fun to read beyond just the novelty of the adventure itself. All right, number four, The Splits, a novel by M.V. Clark. And I was really impressed with this book when I first read it, when she was on one of the zombie tours that I did. This used to have a much longer title. I'm glad she shortened it. It is a novel that covers an epic scale of time. It follows a mystery that involves a disease that causes the separation of the body and spirit as both go on. It creates an interwoven story that is unique with zombie fiction on a number of fronts. You won't find anything else exactly like it. So the story takes place over several different time periods through a particular apocalypse, and it's a unique apocalypse. It includes sort of these spirit elements of sort of the spirit separated from the body, and then the body going on as a zombie. So there's just, as people are trying to unravel what's happened in the story, it's on a scale that I've just never seen anyone else really achieve. So it's different from a lot of other zombie books, but I think that's a good thing in this case. And how often do you find something truly unique in the world? And this is one of those things. All right, the next one, number 5, is Dying Days by Armand Rosamilia. Dying Days is the first book in a complete 9-book series. If you decide to read all 9 books in paperback, you can arrange the covers to create a mural image. This series follows extreme zombies and fascinating characters surviving the end of the world in sunny Florida. Over the course of the series, the zombies evolve, as does the main character. Each book is a quick read, and the story holds up all the way through all 9 books. Several elements set it apart from other novels and series that attempt similar things but don't quite achieve what Dying Days does. I'm a big fan of Armand Rosamilia. I've worked with him on different stories. This used to be a signature series. He's writing a little more crime fiction now, but this began in the early part of his career and continued out for 9 books. And he did an excellent job with this story. The characters that come in and out of the story are quite excellent. They are realistic. They're down to earth. They're practical. They're different, so you're not just getting repeats of the same guy you've already seen, just as a different character. His main character, the female protagonist of the story, goes through quite a evolution as a character, and the nature of the threat in the story changes over the book. So you're dealing with some very different things at the end of the series than you had at the beginning. And so I think when he stopped it at 9 books, and had the conclusion, then you have a complete series that's solid all the way through. It's not just an ongoing thing forever and ever. You got 9 books is a lot to read, but again, they're short. But it's a solid, complete series, which I think is a rare thing with some tropes in horror. All right, number 6, Adrian's Undead Diary by Chris Philbrook. This ongoing series has some real depth and creativity. There are phases to the apocalypse. Silence and the threat of other people is used in greater effect in this book than any other zombie story, most any other zombie story I've read. There is plenty more to read if you enjoy book 1, but the first book is worth the read even if you aren't really looking for a series at this point. Chris Philbrook has a nice following of readers and fans for a good reason. He's an excellent storyteller. He figures out how to get inside people's heads. His zombies are different, so in some cases they're essentially silent, so you don't have the moaning and stuff, so the threat of not noticing them coming up on you is greater, and he works that horror very, very well. When he shows other types of horror like the evil of people and the loss and things like that, he digs a little deeper than I think a lot of authors do, and so there's some real strength to this story that you probably find other stories that kind of have a similar idea, people just trying to survive zombies during an apocalypse. But Chris Philbrook has a writing style that and a storytelling ability that goes beyond a lot of those others, which is why I included it on this list. Number 7, Zombie Fallout by Mark Tufo. Mark Tufo has a large group of intensely loyal fans. The fact that I imply you might not have heard of his book would upset many of them. Let me emphasize that I am saying his work deserves more attention. He infuses humor, heart, and a driving, action-packed story that has earned his audience. This is another book that provides many more sequels to enjoy, but you will be well rewarded reading book 1, even if you don't think you want to take on a whole series yet. He has just done some excellent work. When this first book came out, he was just sort of experimenting with writing, but he showed his ability to capture something special in these characters and sort of the humor of an everyday man. And this series has been going on a while. He has some side series too. He has one about werewolves. He's done some collaborative projects with people that are really, really good. He has one set in the same zombie universe that follows a dog along. He also has books that sort of deal with sort of a secret conspiracy laboratory thing. He has one that sort of follows a different type of virus inside a clown named Tim. And I believe there's 3 books in that side series, and that is really dark and excellent too. So Mark Tufo is a really talented author who's making a good living at writing because people buy his books. But there's still a wide range of people, even zombie readers and horror readers, who do not know who he is because, again, the books are self-published. He and his wife actually have a publishing company now that put out his books and other books as well. But it's fascinating to me the really successful career he's built for himself when a lot of what we would consider big-name authors might not know who he is. And in fact, he's probably making more money than some of them are. But all that to say that Zombie Fallout is what started it all, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful story. All right, number 8, Clickers vs. Zombies by J.F. Gonzalez and Brian Keene. If I made a list of the best zombie books ever, Keene might be on it multiple times. For this list, Clickers vs. Zombies is the one more readers should know about. This work brings together the Clickers mythos of the late J.F. Gonzalez and the grand zombie universe of Keene's intelligent and possessed zombies. It's a wild ride that will have you hungry for the other works from both authors. So J.F. Gonzalez has passed away. He wrote a number of extreme horror books, and clickers with sort of these little crustacean like monsters. They're not all that little, but these crustacean type monsters that come out, and then this bigger mythos kind of builds around them. Brian Keene joined him in co-writing a few of those, including this one, Clickers versus Zombies. And in Clickers versus Zombies, Brian Keene brings in his own zombie universe. So he has some sort of spirit, some characters that are like spirits that come in and they possess the dead bodies, and that's where the reanimation and the zombie come from. So these are intelligent and malevolent creatures that these zombies are. So his universe is sort of running around trying to stay safe from zombies who can think and chase you and track you and set traps for you and all sorts of terrible things. So when you put these two universes together, this book is just out there and it's crazy. You'll probably want to read the rest of the Clicker books, and you'll probably enjoy reading more Brian Keene books. All right, number 9, Brain Eater Jones by Stephen Kazanowski, a noir mystery mixed with the reanimated madness of the zombie genre turned on its head. Kazanowski is a great writer who shines most when he deconstructs a trope and turns it into something entirely new. This is one of the early examples of that skill at work. This story deserves more readers. He co-wrote a book recently, Stephen Kazanowski did, called A Perfectly Fine House, which is one of the greatest greatest ghost stories, haunted house stories I've ever read. And again, what makes it work and what he's skilled at is he sort of takes apart that entire trope and makes a haunted house story that's almost in reverse. And it becomes a great story. The ending is surprising, and all the pieces of it were kind of there all along. The Hermatophages and a prequel book to that is sort of, it's not really zombies, but it's horror and space, and you can kind of see some of the elements that he brings in there. So Kazanowski's a great author, and just in terms of his zombie work, this is one that deserves a little more attention. All right, lastly, number 10, Southern Devils by Brent Abel. This novel follows a voodoo-style zombie story with the dead being raised with a mission. It plays with illusions of the lost cause of the Confederacy as Southern soldiers are pulled from their graves to be tortured with another assignment. It shows the best work of an underappreciated author doing something new with zombies and historic fiction. And there is at least one, I think maybe 2 sequels to this one, but this first book is good. It stands alone, stands on its own, and is just very strong writing. He's demonstrated real skill as an author, but it just hasn't gotten nearly the attention he deserves, and I believe this is a very strong representation of what he's capable of. So concluding off the article, I could go on and on with this list. There are a lot of terrible zombie stories out there, but then there are some that show the best the genre has to offer. If you're looking for something new with a monster that is old and falling apart, you can't go wrong with the books listed above. If you read all these, I have plenty more suggestions. If you read all of those and are hungry for even more, I'll be happy to send you a list of links to the zombie books I've written.